The Australian budget just dropped $833 billion in spending, a $28 billion deficit. Negative gearing changes the Prime Minister promised multiple times would not happen, capital gains tax reforms not seen for a generation, and buried inside all of it, the same story I've been wanting to tell you for months. Let me take you behind the budget, calmly, plainly, and show you why the people running this country are completely in over their heads and why what they're doing is quietly costing you every year, whether you notice it or you don't. Same burger, same beef, same bun. In 2000, a Big Mac in Australia cost $2.50. Today, it's $8.50, the same burger. The burger didn't change, but your dollars did. In 1990, a house in Sydney was 190 grand. Today, that same house is $1.6 million. The bricks didn't multiply, your dollars got 8 times weaker. And this isn't bad luck. It's nothing you've done wrong. It's the consequence of a short-sighted leadership, hooked on creating money that has never been earned, and a system now so trapped the people running it can't even fix it, not even if they wanted to. Over the next 3 videos, I'll show you exactly what's happening to your money, why they can't stop, and what I personally do to protect my family. I'm Christian Maloof, and welcome to Capital Clarity with Christian. For those new to my videos, I'm an ex-banker with 15 years experience across NAB and Westpac, and now a full-time trader, financial fundamentals advocate. Here to explain the things to you that you think are complex, but really aren't once you unwrap them. Let's get into it. Let's start with tax. If you earn 150 grand in Australia, you'll pay around $40,000 in income tax. That's the headline number. That's the one we're all counting. But that's usually where your counting stops. But it doesn't stop there. GST on pretty much everything you buy, fuel excise every time you fill up your car, stamp duty when you buy a house, land tax, capital gains, your super gets tax going in, inside the fund, and sometimes even coming out. It all adds up. The average Australian on a decent income hands somewhere between 40 and 50% of total earnings to some level of the government every year. In a year you buy a house, it can push as high as 60 and even further. If you earn 150 grand, by Wednesday lunchtime, you've worked off your tax bill for the week. That's working half the week for free. The first half of the week, every single week, gone. Goes to the government before you even see a cent. That's the half you can see. But there's a second half. The half you take home is also losing value, just like the Big Mac that we were speaking about. So, if half our income is taxed, where's it all going? The 2026-27 Australian federal budget is over $830 billion. Most of it isn't waste, it's hospitals, aged care, the NDIS, the age pension, defence, education, things we want and truly need as a country. The problem is, these bills are growing faster than the population working can fund them. In 1970, there were 7.5 working age Australians for every retiree. Today, it's hit about 4. By 2060, 2.5. 2.5 workers funding the pension, healthcare, aged care, and the NDIS of every retiree in the country. And then there's the bill nobody wants to talk about, defence. We're a country of 27 million people, smaller than the state of Texas in the United States, sitting on the edge of the most strategically important region on Earth, the Asia Pacific. At the exact moment the global order is being redrawn. For 30 years after the Cold War, defence was a footnote. That era is over. Australia has now committed to lifting defence spending to 3% of GDP by 2033, the largest peacetime defence build-up in modern Australian history. Even doubling income tax wouldn't even come near to closing the gap. So when tax doesn't cover the spending, the government has 3 levers of which it can pull. Lever 1, cut spending. Politically painful, almost impossible in an ageing democracy where the most powerful voting blocs are pensioners, healthcare patients, and people on welfare. Every government talks about cutting spending. Almost none actually do it. It's a pre-election promise that is never kept. Lever 2, raise taxes. Politically painful too, but easier to dress up. You don't have to raise the headline rate. You can just close loopholes, cap concessions, and adjust thresholds. Tax fairness is the political wrapping. Higher tax is the actual income. Lever 3, print money. Easiest of the three, no one votes against it, most people don't even notice it's happening, and the cost shows up later in higher prices, lower savings, and lost purchasing power. So which levers is our budget pulling? Not the first one. Spending is up nearly 50 billion year on year. So they're pulling the other two, quietly raising taxes, and as I'll show you in part 2, printing money behind the scenes to fund that gap. And the negative gearing changes in this budget, you ask. Perfect example of the second lever in motion. Before the last election, the Prime Minister was asked directly, multiple times, to the point where he got upset, where the negative gearing was off the table. His answer was unequivocal all times asked. Off the table. He said it again last year, and he even made examples of how he was repeating himself. He said it again 3 months ago. And this week, the rules changed. This isn't a political attack. Every government does this. Labor, Liberal alike. The Howard government changed superannuation rules in 2007. The Abbott government changed welfare indexation in 2014. The Rudd government changed private health rebates in 2009. The lesson is this government can't be trusted. No government can be. So, what do you have control over? Yourself and your financial life. Are you flexible enough to handle that? Before I tell you how the printer works, let me call out something we all do. Whenever news talks about money and central banks, they use words like quantitative easing, balance sheet expansion, hawkish stance, dovish pivot, liquidity injection. And what must all of us do? Well, we nod and then we move on. It sounds technical, so we assume it's important and complicated and possibly beyond us. But here's one thing, it's not that complicated. It's just been made to sound complicated. Quantitative easing equals central bank printing money to buy government bonds. That's it. Quantitative tightening, the central bank stops buying new bonds and lets the bonds it already owns mature without replacing them. The money that was created through QE is quietly draining out of the system, and that's about it. Hawkish means they're worried about inflation and they want to print less and potentially raise interest rates. Dovish, worried about the economy and are willing to print more money and possibly lower interest rates. That's the whole jargon dictionary. Half a page. You'd read it in 90 seconds. Now let me give you the framework that explains the rest of this video. Supply and demand. Every price you've ever paid is just where those two lines meet. How much of something exists, how much people want it. Supply goes up, prices fall. Supply goes down, prices rise. Most reliable law in economics. Every market, every item, always. And here's the part that's hiding in plain sight. The dollar in your pocket, it's just another item. It has supply, it has demand. Same law applies. Double the number of dollars in the system, while the amount of stuff stays the same, every dollar buys a little less. The bread, the petrol, the houses, they cost more because the dollar becomes worth less when there's more of it. That's all inflation really is when you think about it. Too many dollars chasing the same amount of stuff. So who decides how many dollars exist? In Australia, the Reserve Bank. In America, the Federal Reserve. In the UK, the Bank of England. Every country has one. Some of the most powerful institutions on earth. Most of us couldn't pick their leaders out of a lineup. Ask the average person what a central bank does. They'll scratch their head and say, they set interest rates? True that, they do set interest rates, but that's about only 10% of their actual job. The other 90% is the part hiding. Central banks are the bank of the government. When the government runs out of money, the central bank steps in, buys the bonds the government can't sell, but they've issued. With that money, it's just created out of thin air. That's the printer. And here's the bit worth understanding. Central banks are supposed to be independent from the government. The whole system was designed that way because politicians can't easily be trusted with money. That separation had worked previously well from the 1980s until the financial crisis, then COVID. And now, when the central bank is buying trillions of dollars of bonds the government is issuing but can't sell, they're functionally the bank of the government. The press releases still talk about independence, but the money flows where the government needs it and when the government needs it. So let's pull this all together. Tonight's budget shows the gap is still very much there and growing. spending up 47 billion year on year. Deficits still north of 28 billion. So they're pulling the second lever, quietly raising taxes through negative gearing and CGT changes. And as I'll show you in part 2, they're also pulling the third lever, the money printer, behind the scenes. Now, the obvious question, surely they can stop. Surely someone has the discipline to put the printer down. Well, I'll tell you something, they've been trying, they can't. Japan started this horrible rhythm in 2001, 25 years ago. West copied them through the GFC and COVID, and that's when things went nuclear. In part 2, I'll show you exactly why they can't stop. And if you want the full data behind everything in this video, every source, every chart, every claim, expanded into a full Capital Clarity report, comment clarity below, I'll build it out for you. And I'll send it to you personally. I'm Christian, and this is Capital Clarity. If you like what you're seeing here, like and subscribe, because there's a lot more to come. We'll see you in part 2.